Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our tribute live concert to the life and times of Her Majesty, who sadly passed yesterday. Sad times indeed for the world, basically. Imagine someone like that. She's been around, or she was around. God, we've got to get used to speaking in the past tense. She was around for all of our lives, basically. I was talking to a lot of people yesterday. And, with the exception of people from, let's say, my grandparents' generation, and I'm going to be 50 in January, so, that's a long time ago. With the exception of those people, she's been the only monarch they have known throughout their lives. It's amazing. My grandmother was born in the 20s, so when she was born, it was King George V. Then, of course, there was Edward VIII, briefly. Then there was George VI, and then, of course, there was Her Majesty. And now we have a new king for the first time in 70 years. That's unbelievable. I wonder what Charles feels like today. My goodness me. Quite an amazing time for the world, and incredibly difficult to comprehend what one person has done or has seen or has changed in the last 90 odd years, but certainly in the last 70 years of reign. Unbelievable. Now, tonight, I hope you're going to hang around with us tonight. Tonight, we've got a concert of all sorts of music in some way related to royalty or the Queen herself. Now, at some point, there will, of course, be a concert dedicated to King Charles III and his music and his preferences and that kind of thing. Now, over the course of the evening, I have a number of anecdotes for you as well. I had the pleasure of meeting the Queen a number of times, both in official and unofficial private capacities, which was rather amazing, and fascinating character, obviously. And I would never, ever pretend to say that I knew her, but we did have the occasional chat about things that not many other people probably chatted about. We talked about music a couple of times, and she told me the kinds of music she enjoyed and liked. Now, this is all public knowledge now, but at the time, this was in the 90s. At the time, this was all sort of very hush-hush, and nobody knew what the Queen was really into, musically speaking. And there were some surprising answers, let's put it like that. So I've put a program together this evening featuring some of that music as well as some of the music you might be expecting. Now, while the death of someone as important as the Queen is obviously a very somber occasion, we are celebrating the life of an amazing person, so we have to include some very positive music as well. So I'm going to start this evening with a couple of hymns from the hymn book, believe it or not, and I've been digging around trying to find out what the Queen's favourite hymns were. And one of them won't surprise you. It's a hymn that was actually played at her wedding. A hymn that was played at her wedding to Prince Philip all those years ago. A very standard hymn, I suppose you might expect to find certainly at a royal wedding, but certainly at any sort of high Anglican service. Don't forget the Queen was head of the Anglican Church. So, she should know about the music. She should have all the good music. And one of her favourites, apparently, was always this one. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So we're having some technical issues in the background this evening. You can't see this and you can't hear what's going on, but there's some rather weird things going on in the background, which slightly off-putting around. But don't worry, we'll work around it. We're trying to be as professional as possible. Praise my soul, the King of Heaven. Now, like I said, the Queen had a number of interesting melodies that she loved, and we don't need the book for the next one. And one of her favorite hymns of all time, and I'm going to change registrations here. And I'm going to use these registrations. By the way, this evening, I'm playing the organ of Melbourne Town Hall. Believe it or not, this is the only instrument I have. This is if you're new to the channel, then hello, welcome to Fraser Gartshore, and this is the Gartshore gang this evening. So welcome to the Gartshore gang. If you're new, let us know in the chat, by the way, ladies. I can't see the chat tonight. Again, technical issues. But let us know in the chat if you're new, if it's your first time. Welcome along. That was my wife, Vanessa, in the background having a sneeze. Bless you. And anyway, yes, this is it's a MIDI console, an organ console, linked to some of the most amazing software ever invented. It's called Hauptwerk, which is German for great manual on an organ. Hauptwerk, main pipes, basically. And this software enables you to play digitally sampled pipe organs. Now that sounds not terribly exciting. It is, however, these organs, they've taken every single pipe in these organs, they've sampled them individually, and it's all been sort of put together in the most complicated software. And you can replay these organs as if you're actually in the building. Now, this is the Melbourne Town Hall organ. I think there's a picture of it somewhere. Is there a picture of it? There you are, there's a picture of it there. Not very good one. It's far too far away for you. Oh God, what tab am I on that one? And anyway, and this is a view of all the stops from the organ, and I can pool all the stops, or I can do what I want. I can save different combinations of them. It's all very clever. And believe it or not, this is the only sample set I have of an organ that belongs to the Commonwealth. Every other organ sample set I have is either a French organ or a German organ or a Dutch organ or an American organ, and so on and so on. And this is the only Commonwealth organ I have, but it was built by an English organ builder, so at least we have a British connection this evening. British connection, I'm Scottish, I live in Germany, and here we are playing an Australian organ built by an Englishman. So it's all very Commonwealth, I'm sure we will agree. Right, anyway, that's enough of the history lesson. Let's move on. Now, this organ is what's known as a concert organ. It's not a church organ as such. It's got all sorts of effects that a church organ would not normally have. And I have some rather interesting combinations of stops here that make the organ sound very orchestral. And I'm going to improvise around on a piece of music that you might recognize. As we know from news, the Queen died in her Scottish home, Balmoral Castle. And the Queen was very fond of Scotland. Don't forget her mother, the Queen Mother, was Scottish. And hold on, I want to make sure I get the right combination there. 21, yeah, that's good. Let's start there then. And the Queen loved everything about Scotland. She spent as much time as she could up in Balmoral. It was her sort of summer holiday home, as it were. I wouldn't mind that. And this year for the final time. But she loved all things Scottish. And this was her favourite Scottish hymn. There we go. The Lord's my shepherd. And if you noticed, I swapped in a little bit of The Day Thou Gavest. There's a funeral coming up, and that's going to be the kind of music we're going to be hearing. Now, on the subject of funerals, did you know there's a lot of classical funeral music? Oh, yes. And I've got two pieces of music this evening, and this is pretty hard-going stuff, this one. This is heavy, heavy stuff. And where is it? I've got it. A selection of registrations that fit rather nicely here. Yeah, that looks good. That looks even better. That looks good, as does that. My. Yes. Okay. Hold on. Number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, what's the difference between that and that? Oh, absolutely nothing. That's not good. So that wants to be on there. Okay. I'm telling you, technical stuff today has been a catastrophe. I wonder who did that. What was the first piece of music I played? It was an improvisation around lots of things, including God Save the Queen. Who's asking?
Unser Geist.
A ghost? We have a ghost? We have a ghost. Is it a ghost of an old queen? We may never know. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you are enjoying things so far. Things will, by the way, we will be getting, as the evening progresses, we will be getting jollier and jollier. We will even be including some popular music, including a lot of jazzy stuff. The Queen was an absolute mad jazz fan. I bet you didn't know that. And there's plenty of that coming up as well. Right. Handel. George Frederick Handel, or to give him his German title, Georg Friedrich Handel. Don't forget, the British royal family is basically an old German royal family that came over to take over back in 17 something or other. And that was George I, which was the Queen's great, I don't know, grandfather, something like that. Well, think about it. Victoria was her great-great-grandmother, or great-grandmother? Great-great-grandmother. Going back a bit. So, by the way we work it back. But George Friedrich Handel, Georg Friedrich Handel, came from Germany, around Hanover, where he came from, and he came to Britain with King George, and he was basically King George's composer, right-hand music man, as it were. And Handel composed a lot of music for the royal family, and a lot of it's still used. It's basically royal music. And there is, from his work Saul, there's a funeral march, and this is a very orchestral piece of music. This was a request, actually. I was going to play it anyway tonight, but it was a request by a friend of the channel, Mr. Alexander Wunderlich. Is Alexander here tonight? Of course Alexander's here tonight. Hello, Alexander. And Alexander Wunderlich actually sent me an organ version of the music. I had a different one, but I thought, no, I will play Alexander's one. But I'm going to turn it into an orchestral variation. This is an orchestral organ, so let's see what we can do. The Funeral March from Saul by George Friedrich Handel. I hope that didn't surprise you, the change between the quiet and the loud parts there. This organ is capable of all sorts of things. There's a stop on this organ called a trumpet Victoria, named, of course, after Queen Victoria. A real fanfare trumpet, and not only that, there's an octave you can add to it which makes it even louder. Which is just crazy. That was Handel's Funeral March from Saul. Now, a lesser known fact about Her Majesty: unlike her husband, Prince Philip, who loved the music of Johann Sebastian Bach, the Queen herself was not a fan of Johann Sebastian Bach. Despite what anyone says, she was not terribly fond of much of his music at all. And it's quite interesting. A number of people have been, playing sort of tributes to the Queen, and some of them have been playing music by Bach, which is actually quite funny because she would not have liked that at all. Definitely not a fan of Bach's music. So, however, she was a fan of Mr. Mozart. And Mr. Mozart composed. What a day it has been, ladies and gentlemen. Hold on, that is correct, yeah, that's good. Mr. Mozart composed lots of wonderful music, including some funeral music, and this is strangely fitting to the death of Her Majesty, because this is K477. This is Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart's Masonic funeral music. The Queen was not only head of the Anglican Church, the Queen was also one of the highest, if not pretty much the highest ranking Freemason as well. Being a monarch in the UK, it is quite important to be part of the Freemasonry, and the Queen was no exception. And normally being a male affair, Freemasonry, we're not talking about the female side of it, the Eastern Star, we're talking about the male side of it. The Queen was a Freemason. Not many people know that. This then is Mozart's Masonic funeral music. And it's actually a lot cheerier than Handel's funeral music. See if you can spot the hidden Masonic messages. Some typical Mozartian rhythms and melodies and harmonies and intricacies there. I think we'll cheer things up a little bit. What do you think? Enough of this funeral style music. We all know that the Queen loved her military engagements. The Queen was head of basically everything in the military. And she loved the parades, and she loved, in particularly, military music. And one of her favorite pieces of music was the march from, have I get this one right? Yes, was the march from the Coldstream Guards, the quick march from the Coldstream Guards called, oh God, what's it called? Milanolo, which sounds very Italian. I think it was written by an Austrian, don't quote me on that, I can't actually remember, but it's an absolutely wonderful, wonderful piece of music, and it should go something like this. This is great fun to play on an organ, by the way, march music, and this organ does it rather brilliantly. I hope I get this right. The Coldstream Guards Quick March. Milanolo, that's what it's actually called, something like that. From I can't remember who composed it now. Sorry about that. I'm sure someone out there will be able to tell us who composed it. Right then, we're going to move on a little bit and we're going to change the style completely. I'm not going to change the organ yet. I'll be changing organ at some point very soon, but we're going to show you what this organ is capable of. It's capable of all sorts of things. It's got bells. It's got, where is it? It's got, oh for heaven's sake, how do I do this? Oh, there, it's got drums. It's even got a bass drum, hasn't it? Yes, here we go. It's not very loud, but it's under pedals. And it means you can sort of bop around and do some fun music. First time I ever met the Queen. Back in the 90s, I was a student at Edinburgh University, and the Queen turned up to some event. And just by chance, I didn't know that this was turning up, didn't know this was happening, but there was a commotion in the city centre. So I, of course, being me, I sort of nudged my way to the front to find out what was going on. And it turned out it was the Queen on walkabout in the middle of town with her husband, Prince Philip. And the Queen sort of wandered over and shook my hand and asked the question the Queen always asked everybody, "And you, what do you do?" That was always the way she did it. And as she did it, her eyes glazed over. And I thought, she's not interested. I could say anything I wanted, but I didn't. I told the truth. When you're in the presence of the Queen, there's something about her. She gets everything out of anybody, or she did at least. Wonderful. And I said, "I'm a student, Your Majesty." And, "Oh, what are you studying?" "I'm studying music here at the university." "Oh, I see. And what do you play?" And we chatted for what felt like forever. It was probably only about 30 seconds, but I felt very privileged to have told all these things to Her Majesty, because as she moved to the next person, she did the same thing, the eyes glazed over. "And you, what do you do?" And that person was ready to tell wonderful stories, and she just sort of shook their hand and moved straight on and wasn't interested at all. And I thought, this is wonderful. The Queen's really interested in what I did because she didn't ask anybody else. So that was meeting number 1. Let's continue with a fun piece of music. Now, the Queen loved musicals. Old musicals, not sort of modern tripe, but the old musicals, the real good ones, the Irving Berlins, the Jerome Kerns, the Cole Porters. She loved all that kind of stuff. And one of her favorites, believe it or not, from Annie Get Your Gun, an old sort of Western style thing, a wonderful piece of music called Anything You Can Do, I Can Do Better. And I think that sums up Queen Elizabeth II rather beautifully, don't you think? Anything you can do, I can do better. I can do anything better than you. At this point, Vanessa should say in the background, "No, you can't." She's not listening. She's not paying any attention to me at all. This is Mrs. Gartshore, by the way. This is Vanessa, my producer and director in the background. Okay, hörst du zu? Pass auf. Ich sage, anything you can do, I can do better. I can do anything better than you. Und dann sagst du, hörst du? No, you can't.
No, you can't. Okay.
And I answer, yes, I can. And you say, no, you can't. Yes, I can. No, you can't. Yes, I can. No, you can't.
Das ist mir zu kompliziert.
And that's too complicated. So there you go. So Vanessa's not having any of it. So, ladies and gentlemen, you fill in the blanks. The no, you can't. Yes, I can. No, you can't. Yes, I can. You do that. I'm superior, you're inferior. I'm the big attraction, you're the small. I'm the major one, you're the minor one. I can beat you shooting. That's not all. Okay, and then anything you can do, I can do better. All good fun. This was one of the Queen's favourite pieces. And I can just imagine her and her husband Philip of an evening, after a couple of martinis, playing around with this tune. I wonder, did they? I can do anything better than you. No, you can't. Yes, I can. No, I can't. Yes, I can. And so on and so on. Fun stuff indeed. Who's in the mood for a sing-along? Showboat, Jerome Kern. Another one of Her Majesty's favourite. Unbelievable, isn't it? You would never have imagined. Another one of her favourite favourite musicals from years gone by. Showboat. Wouldn't that be amazing? And one of the pieces of music from Showboat that I think you have to play would of course be, it's the age-old love story of Elizabeth and Philip. Together for well over 70 years. Frightening when you think about it. Vanessa and I have been together for 5.5 years. And unbelievable really when you consider how long and how perfect the pair of them seemed to be their entire lives. And a lot of the music she seemed to like actually reflected that. And from Showboat, her favourite one was Can't Help Lovin' Dat Man, which is a wonderful piece of music. Sums it up beautifully if you ask me. I'm going to use the orchestral sounds of this magnificent organ again. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, Mrs. Gartshore, have we got our little banner on the image this evening? She says yes. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what Vanessa and I do for a living. We love doing this. It's great fun, but we need your help. We love having your help. We need your help for this kind of thing. And here it is. Look at that. Thank you for your support, it says at the bottom of the screen now. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, if you're interested in helping us out, you can join us on Patreon on a regular basis. You can give us something via our PayPal link. There's a PayPal link, isn't there, Vanessa? Have you got it up and running? I can't control the chat this evening, you see, so I have no idea what's going on. I don't even have anything to drink. I'm such a poor chap. And, oh, by the way, I deliberately put on a smart jacket tonight. We're playing for Her Majesty, so I'm not going to play in an old t-shirt. Got to dress up a little bit. So, yes, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. If you're interested in helping us out, we are, of course, very, very grateful indeed. Anything we get gets pumped into the channel one way or another. Oh, that's cute. Vanessa had... Oh, one of our friends from the United States, Joe... Joe sent us some pictures. Joe is a royal fanatic. He loves all things about the royals. And Joe and I had a bit of a chat yesterday and today online about various royal activities. And Joe sent me some pictures. And those pictures are being posted during this evening's concert. So thank you to Joe for those pictures. Vanessa will be sort of popping them on your screen as we pass. Is that right? She says yes. Okay, good. That's fine. Can't Help Lovin' Dat Man. Jerome Kern from Showboat. Can't help loving that man. And that's obviously something Vanessa does, because during that number, Vanessa very sweetly went downstairs and got me an iPad, which means I can follow along with the chat, which I've been missing on this evening. 246 people in the live chat. How many clicks this evening, Vanessa? 1,800 clicks already. That's amazing. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. You're wonderful. Ooh. Absolutely amazing. Oh, hold on. Can I have my coaster, please? Liquid refreshment at Electronic Instruments. Never a good idea, but I have a coaster to keep it nice. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is amazing. What a wonderful audience this evening. Thank you very much. I hope you will come and join us on a regular basis. We do this twice a week, live concerts. Thanks to the wonderful world of Corona a couple of years ago, my organist career playing live concerts around the world kind of abruptly stopped for a while, which was rather annoying. But thanks to the wonders of technology and streaming software and streaming hardware, wow, we're able to do this. So twice a week, Friday nights and Sunday nights, at least nighttime here in Central Europe, in Germany, we have two concerts. Friday night is organ music night, and guess what? Sunday night is organ music night. So if you're enjoying what you're hearing this evening, come and join us again on Sunday, and we'll be here with some more stuff. On Sunday night, we're going to have a more upbeat concert again. I know the world is going into a period of mourning for Her Majesty, I'm guessing, but Her Majesty was a very positive and energetic person, and she definitely wouldn't want people to be sort of, all down about it. Her eldest son, Charles, is definitely not down about it. He is, of course, now King Charles. So he's been waiting his entire life for this moment, and now he's had to step into those shoes. My goodness, what a pair of shoes to step into. All the best to Charles on his reign as King Charles III. The last time I met Her Majesty was in Germany, believe it or not, back in 2000 and, when would it have been? 2005, 2006, something like that. 2004 maybe. 2004, 2005, 2006. The Queen came and visited Dusseldorf. And I, as a British citizen of some ill repute, I was invited to the reception. And I was only allowed to go on my own. I wasn't allowed to take anyone with me, which I thought was hilarious. But anyway, I turned up at this thing in Dusseldorf. And any of you who have been to an event where the royal family were, and they went on sort of walkabout around an event, and you had to meet them, then what normally was happening is you sort of split up into groups around the room you're going to meet in, and when the royal couple arrives, so the Queen and Prince Philip, when they arrive, Philip goes in this direction, the Queen goes in this direction, and they sort of walk round the room, mingle with the groups, chat, shake hands, and generally be bored, and then they meet at the other end and then go off and do whatever they'll do next. Normally have lunch, have dinner, something along those lines. So this event it was at the North Rhine-Westphalian Parliament in Dusseldorf, up at the top floor. And by sheer chance, friends of mine from Cologne were doing the music, and there was sort of modern jazz music in the background. And they were being sort of very modern, academic, jazzy about it too. And eventually all the groups sort of got into position, and 20 minutes later the royal couple arrived, very exciting. And you could see as they came in, the Queen sort of looked at the musicians, ignored them, and wandered off round her side of the room to meet her groups. And she was obviously not in the best of moods, you could tell. She was being very quick and very sort of snippy with all the people. On the other hand, her husband, Prince Philip, was taking his time wandering around his groups, taking forever. So the Queen had sort of got round to the end of her group. I was in a group scheduled to meet with Prince Philip on this side. And as it turned out, the Queen was so fast wandering around her groups, she just sort of stood there. And she was looking over to see what Philip was up to, waving at him to get a move on. And then she sort of wandered over to my group. She ignored all the groups in between. She just sort of wandered over to my group and looked at me and said, "You're not responsible for this awful racket, are you?" talking about the music. And I looked at her and said, good heavens, Your Majesty, no, I'm not responsible for this at all. But, why would you ask? And she said, well, yes, you're the music expert, aren't you? Couldn't believe it. She remembered that. And that was really rather weird. And so we chatted about the music for ages. And there was none of this, what do you do? She didn't talk to anyone else in the group. She just talked to me the whole time. She said, yes, I can't be bothered with these events, honestly. All we do is we sort of wander around, chatting to people about nothing in particular. I'm absolutely starving. I can't wait to go to lunch. And he is just wandering around there, chatting to everybody as if he's interested. And then she called out. She said, come on, get a move on. So Philip ignored most of his groups, wandered over to our group and sort of looked and said, oh, yes, she's a bit hungry today. She's not in the best of moods. I hope she hasn't been rude to you. I said, good heavens, Your Royal Highness. No, definitely not. We've been chatting about the music. And he said, oh, God, it's awful, isn't it? And on and on and on. The funniest part of this anecdote is this was all captured on German television. And for some reason, all the news reports of the evening showing the Queen at this reception, all they showed was the two of them talking to me. That's all they showed. And I got into rather a lot of interesting conversations when I got back, and all my friends saw it on television. Why were you talking to the royal family like that, as if you knew them? So anyway, there you are. That was the last time I met the Queen. Now, there's one more anecdote coming up later, so hang around for that. It's the best one. It's the best one. It's the time I was privileged to meet the Queen privately. And, well, the royal family privately, but something rather interesting happened. Now, back to her musicals. She loved her musicals. She loved her musicals. And one of her favourite musicals was, and I didn't know this was again my friend Joe that told me this, and I researched it afterwards, and it turns out it is of course right. Not that Joe would ever make something up. Joe is a font of knowledge. He knows what he's talking about. Joe is magnificent. Where's my glockenspiel? I need my glockenspiel. There it is. Oklahoma. Ah, Nancy. Thank you, Nancy. Nancy has just donated something to the channel. Thank you, Nancy. Oklahoma. Hugh Jackman is not inside. Oklahoma. Yes. Hugh Jackman sang that. Can you believe that? With his wonderful voice. We're going to change instruments. Now, if you don't know what this is all about, this is wonderful. This is the joy of Hauptwerk. I can play any organ I like in the world, assuming it has been sampled for Hauptwerk. For example, I can, let's say I want to, where should we go next? Actually, I'll tell you what we'll do first. We'll go to a place called Billerbeck. This is a city in Germany. Up near Münster, and not that far away actually from where the royal family is originally from. Yes, the British royal family, very British indeed. I remember having an argument once when I was at university about the royal family, and someone sort of going on about the Englishness of the royal family, and we said, well, not much English in them at all. The only one who was actually English, partly, was Diana. Even only partly. Nowadays, of course, you could say Kate is more sort of the most English of them all. But the rest of them, they're all either German or Scottish, and that's it. The Queen herself was, of course, half German, half Scottish. Let's not forget. Which means Charles is, what's Charles there? Charles is 3/4 German and 1/4 Scottish. His father being, well, German, Greek. So work that one out. Anyway, never mind. It's all European at the end of the day, isn't it? Wonderful stuff. Yeah. Right. I promised you another anecdote about Her Majesty. And this one is, I promised actually not really ever to tell this, but now that she's no longer with us, I suppose there's no way she would find out. A long time ago, I'm not going to mention any where and why and how on earth it happened, but I was invited to take part in a recreation of The Goons. Now, The Goons, that was a sort of 1950s radio series on BBC Radio, the Home Service, in Britain, and it was a comedy series. Spike Milligan, Peter Sellers and Harry Seacombe were the three actors, and they had all sorts of characters, and they all had funny voices. And every week there was a goon show on the radio, and they became very, very famous. And throughout the rest of time, basically, the Goons still has sort of very good standing in sort of British humour in general, and there are lots of societies who recreate the Goons and all that sort of thing. All very hilarious, and some of them are rather good at it, and some of them are particularly bad at it. However, when I was at university, I was part of a very short-lived Goons society at Edinburgh University, and actually we had a couple of sort of members who became famous. For example, hold on, did I just press the right button? I think I may have cocked that up. Oh no, it worked, that's fine. Different screen, different organ, we'll get to that in a moment. For example, you see him on British television all the time now. He studied at Edinburgh University at the same time I was there. Miles Jupp, a comedian, or a British comedian, he was at Edinburgh when I was there. And he was sort of in the background of the Goons thing. He was in all sorts of sort of comedy societies, sort of strange acting societies and things like that. But I sort of knew him vaguely, not really terribly well as well. But anyway, I was in this Goons society, and I used to do the voices of the Peter Sellers characters. I'm not going to do any tonight, but this is the sort of thing we did. And we had a performance at one of the theatres in Edinburgh, and one of the fun things we decided to do was have a sort of a gala concert of the Goons. Now, King Charles, Prince Charles was a very, very, very large, probably the biggest fan of the Goons there is. And of course he was friends with Peter Sellers, Spike Milligan and the lot. And there are actually scenes recorded of Charles pretending to be some of the Goons. He could do the voices very well. And so as a sort of, well, not as a joke, but as an idea, we wrote to Prince Charles and asked him if he would like to come to our performance and be royal patron of our Goons Society at Edinburgh University. And we didn't get a reply for ages and ages and ages. And then one day we got a letter back from his secretary to say that His Royal Highness was more than intrigued to find out about our Goon Society. And during a trip to Edinburgh, he would love to come and meet with us. But it must be sort of on the hush, nothing official. I was like, brilliant, let's do it. So we did. And we arranged for a performance, and we arranged for him to turn up at the performance completely unannounced and be part of the performance. It was wonderful. And the evening sort of started as normal, and at some point one of my characters was a guy called Hercules Gritpipe Thin. And Hercules Gritpipe Thin was he sort of had that George Sanders accent. I'm not going to do it now, but anyway, but one of the lines that would regularly come up was, a Charlie. And at this point in the evening, I turned to the character who was doing sort of the Spike Milligan stuff, and I said, oh, a Charlie. And at that point, on walked Prince Charles. The audience didn't know what to do. They really didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to react. They didn't know what to do. Do they stand up? Did they clap? So they did nothing. They just sat there and sort of stood around. And on walked Prince Charles, and none of this was rehearsed. And he just sort of grabbed the script from one of us and just took over, basically. And this went on for about 20 minutes, and then he sort of gave the script back, made some jokes, and disappeared. And that was it. There was no pleasantries exchanged, nothing. And it was all very sort of, oh my God, what do we do now? So we carry on with the show, and that was it. There was no, hello, what do you do, and all that sort of thing. And he just came, did his bit, disappeared. End. Frightening, but weird. And then ages later, I got an invitation. There was going to be some goons do in London, and would I like to come to it? And I was basically being invited by the office of, or the office of Prince Charles, I suppose, whatever. So I turned up at this thing in London, and it was some kind of gala event, all sorts of exciting things going on. And after the event, there was a do. And it turned out that secretly, a number of members of the royal family were at this gig, but they were sort of hidden in the background. Nobody really saw them. And I can't even remember exactly where this was. It was all sort of very bizarre, very misty in my background. But at some sort of, not royal house, as it were, but some sort of building that belonged to the royals. It was only for them. Nothing public. It was just very sort of private. And we were all standing around after this performance. It was all very sort of weird. There were actors, there were all sorts of famous people, and people were having drinks and talking to each other and mingling, and I was just sort of there on my own, not knowing what to do. And eventually, Prince Charles sort of wandered over and said, "Thank you for coming. I wanted to make sure you were here after our little stint in Edinburgh." I thought, oh my goodness, this is unbelievable. And he said, "There's someone I'd like you to meet. Come with me." And I sort of wandered off with him in a sort of trance, basically. I didn't know what to do. And he wandered over and introduced me again to his mother, the Queen. And she sort of looked and said, "Oh, hello. Yes, he's been telling me all about you. Apparently you're very good at the Peter Sellers voices." And I'm standing talking to the Queen, sort of doing a Hugh Grant, I suppose. Didn't know what to do. Didn't really know how to, so she started laughing and said, look, as she did, started laughing and saying, "Don't worry, I don't want you to do any of them now. Just, I knew them all, you know." And she went off and off on sort of anecdotes about Peter Sellers. Yes, Peter Sellers was very fond of my sister, you know, Margaret, blah, blah, blah. Talking about this all the time. Going on talking about Princess Margaret and Peter Sellers, going on talking about Spike Milligan and the times they met Spike Milligan and how he was always sort of weird and didn't know how to react and things like that. And at some point, I was so dry, completely dry. I didn't know what to do. I was holding a glass of something, and I'd sort of put the glass down and sort of sighed. And she sort of looked at me. She said, "Are you all right?" And I said, I'm sorry. I'm completely overwhelmed by the whole thing. I'm parched. I would love a cup of tea." It's the only thing I could think to say. I would love a cup of tea. And she looked at me and she said, "All right, let's go and have a cup of tea." And she sort of walked off, and I sort of trundled along behind her, and she got me a cup of tea. The Queen got me a cup of tea, and I had a cup of tea with Her Majesty at this weird event, and we sort of talked about things, and I mentioned that I'd met her in Edinburgh, you know, we talked about music, and she didn't remember it, obviously, and things like that. But we talked about music for ages. I think we probably talked, I felt like ages. It was probably 10 minutes, but it felt like ages. And I was telling her about my jazz music and all the things I love doing. And she said, oh yes, I'm a great fan of Dixieland jazz, but I'm a very, very big fan of Duke Ellington and his music. Again, I'm very jealous. My sister was fond of Duke Ellington and they met on a regular occasion. She only met Duke Ellington once or twice, apparently. But she was a great fan of the music of Duke Ellington. Can you believe that? So here's me sitting at some bizarre event. Everything's going on over there. I'm sitting in a corner privately with Her Majesty, drinking a cup of tea that she got for me, talking about Duke Ellington and Dixieland music. A very, very, very bizarre night in my life, let me tell you. Let's have some Duke Ellington. This is the organ in Billerbeck. Billerbeck Cathedral, a huge cathedral in the north, sort of northish of Germany. And it's great. It's an enormous instrument. You can do all sorts of wonderful things with it, including jazz music. And here's a piece of music that apparently Her Majesty loved, Duke Ellington's Mood Indigo. Actually, it's quite funny because Duke Ellington didn't actually write it. It was Barney Bigard that wrote it. But she loved Mood Indigo from Duke Ellington. Duke Ellington, or Barney Bigard's, Mood Indigo, favourite of Her Majesty's. Her Majesty was obviously around during the wartime, and her parents refused to leave London, even though London around them was being bombed. The kids were sent off to the countryside, Elizabeth and Margaret. They disappeared off to the countryside, but the King and the Queen stayed and almost lost their lives on a variety of occasions. Had pretty much rotten time of it, but that solidified British toughness, got them going, and that's never been forgotten. And towards the end of the war, actually not really towards the end of the war, it got very famous. But there was a piece of music, a wartime piece of music, that was again a favourite of Her Majesty's. And this is well documented. She loved this piece of music, and she was very fond of the singer. I think they were similar ages, Dame Vera Lynn. I think Vera Lynn also made it to some crazy old age. She was about 128 when she died, wasn't she? Something like that. If she even is dead, I don't know. Is Vera Lynn still around? But she sang a piece of music called There'll Be Bluebirds Over the White Cliffs of Dover Tomorrow, Just You Wait and See. And this, like I said, this is a piece of music, basically sort of the if you've ever taken the boat from Europe to the south of England, you will of course have seen the not so white cliffs of Dover, but it's a very sort of significant and important landmark, as it were, signaling the what's the word I'm looking for? Help me, people. Celebrating the magnificence of the British Isles. There you are. There's one way of putting it. There'll be bluebirds over the white cliffs of Dover. This is interesting. Playing this music on a church organ, but it works. Trust me. A short one there, the white cliffs of Dover. Qu'est-ce que c'est ça? What is this? Who sent this?
John Wilson.
John Wilson. Hello, John Wilson. How are you? How are you? John Wilson. Oh my goodness, what is this? Oh my goodness me. Printed on a piece of music paper. So small. My goodness me. Yeah? Well, a little bit bigger wouldn't be bad if we can spare the paper. Good heavens. It's a funeral march by Ludwig van Beethoven. I must admit, I don't know this. What on earth is it then? Let's find out. It's in the magnificent key of B flat minor. If you're new to our concerts, we do this from time to time. We have spontaneous requests and people send us things. And my producer and director, Mrs. Gartshore in the background, decides whether I should play it or not. And these are the sorts of things I don't necessarily know. Is this actually? No, it's not. It's not the funeral march from the Third Symphony. Is it? Funeral march from Symphony Eroica. It doesn't look like it. That's in C minor, isn't it? That's so small, it's hardly legible, and it's written in old style music as well, so it needs to be a bit bigger. My eyes aren't what they used to be, you know. That's Monty Python, isn't it? My eyes are old and bent. Yes. Is it? Oh, that's better. Yes, here we go. That's more like it. That's more like it. Senior citizen proof. This is the way to do it. All right, a funeral march by Beethoven, and it's loud. I like loud. Not the greatest fan of Beethoven myself, I must admit, but Her Majesty was. Bet you didn't know that. Of course you knew that. Yeah, the only composer she really didn't like really was Bach. She was not a fan of Bach's music. Wow, pretty exciting stuff, I think you'll agree. Ludwig van Beethoven's Funeral March. Link to Beethoven. When I moved to Germany 22 years ago, I lived in the city of Bonn at first. And Bonn is, of course, the city in which Beethoven was born. And oh my goodness, people in Bonn love the fact that he's from there. Although Beethoven himself couldn't wait to get away. How are we doing for time, ladies and gentlemen? We're getting close to midnight. Now, we've got a couple more interesting things here this evening, but it's getting towards the end of a birthday. A birthday. There are two birthdays we're going to have a dig for today. Now, a very, very good friend of the channel turned 50 today. Our friend Rien Schalkwijk, you all know Rien from his channel. If you don't know Rien Schalkwijk's channel, go and check it out. He's another organist here on YouTube. And Rien is a phenomenal organist, and he's just got himself one of these. He's got 3 manuals, a new 3-manual organ console to play Hauptwerk, and he's absolutely delighted. He sort of treated himself to it. And today is Rien's 50th birthday. Rien is a couple of months older than I am, and Rien is actually out celebrating with his family this evening, but to surprise him, I promised that we would all get together and sing happy birthday for Rien. Let's do that first. Wonderful chap. We love Rien. He's an absolutely wonderful guy. What are these registrations? And Bob? Who Bob? Nancy? Who's Bob? Nancy's husband? A friend of Nancy. Our friend Nancy Telling. You can read Nancy in the chat there. Nancy's doing her thing. And Nancy's friend, husband, brother, cousin, neighbor, Bob, Nancy's Bob, also is celebrating his birthday today. So we're going to sing happy birthday twice, 2 times. We're going to sing it once for Rien. There you are, R-I-E-N, that's it. Happy birthday, Rien. We're going to sing it for Rien, and then we're going to sing it for Bob as well. And we're going to do it in 2 different keys. And we're going to do it in 2 different styles as well. Let's sing for Bob, first of all, in the traditional birthday style. Leave the microphone on, because I'm going to tell you what to do. This is for Bob. That was happy birthday for Bob. Now we're going to sing happy birthday to Rien. But I'm going to do it in a jazzy style because Rien loves jazz music and he loves theatre organ music. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a theatre organ. You know it from Blackpool. That's a theatre organ, a cinema organ if you like. And this is what we're going to use to close off this evening's concert. Let's sing happy birthday to Rien first of all in a jazzy style. Happy birthday, Rien. Or if you want to get it with the rhythm, we'll sing happy birthday, Colonel Ryan. Rien's a colonel in the army. So let's do a Colonel Ryan, see if that works. In case any of you out there are musicologists, that was I started in the key of F, and we did F and F sharp for Bob, and then we did G and A flat And A for I've never played Happy Birthday in A major before. There you are, first time for everything. Back to the music of Irving Berlin for Her Majesty. She loved to dance. Bet you didn't know that. She was an amazing dancer as well. She would quite regularly get up and just dance around to various things. There's an anecdote of the Queen at some concert for her. ABBA came on, Dancing Queen, and she got up and started dancing around and said, "Look, I'm dancing and I'm the Queen. This is my song." It's apparently true. Ooh. A bit of a mover on her feet, Her Majesty. And she loved the music of Irving Berlin, and she was particularly fond of this piece of music, Cheek to Cheek, Heaven. I'm in heaven. Well, she is now. From Irving Berlin. Wonderful stuff indeed. Ah, great fun music. I promised you more Duke Ellington. The Queen loved her Duke Ellington music. And I don't know if this was one of her favourites, but it's one of my favourites, and I think it sort of fits the occasion rather nicely. Duke Ellington was a piano player, and this instrument here I'm playing, by the way, has its own piano, which is rather clever. And that's better. Forgot to turn the piano up. And that's an actual piano playable from the actual theatre organ. It's not a synthesized thing. Obviously it is here, it's all synthesized because it's sampled, but it's an actual piano that you can play on the actual organ. Anyway, a wonderful piece of music from Duke Ellington, and it sort of fits rather nicely, I think. I'm beginning to see the light. Ladies and gentlemen, we're getting towards the end of this evening's concert. I've just had a message from the management. If you've enjoyed it this evening, don't forget to help us out and buy your virtual concert ticket. There's a link there to our PayPal. Head over, get yourselves a virtual concert ticket. It's a little way to say thank you for the music this evening, and it's my way of keeping these things going. This is the fun and games we're having here. We want to keep these, hold on, which one do I want? I want that one. We want to keep these live concerts going as long as we possibly can, and we're only able to do so with your generous support. So thank you very much indeed, ladies and gentlemen. Virtual ticket, if you're interested, head on over and we'll enjoy it. Our final piece of music for this evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's past midnight here in this part of the world, which means it's time for us to say goodbye. And we're going to finish off with one of the best known ballads in the world, and I need different registrations for this, and I'm not sure which ones to take. I don't really want to. Actually, we'll stick to those and we'll sort of play around with it. We'll play around with it. That's quite loud, actually. No, that's too loud. We don't want those. We want different ones. We want these registrations. Let's try these. These are much, yeah, they're much softer. Back in 1939, a rather important film hit the cinemas. Started out in black and white, in the middle turned into colour, Technicolor. The film was, of course, The Wizard of Oz, and the most famous piece of music from The Wizard of Oz was Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Once again, one of Her Majesty's favourite pieces of music. She had very, very eclectic tastes in music. Very tasteful lady, very fond of a good tune, which is rather wonderful. That, ladies and gentlemen, was our brief concert tribute to Her Majesty, including some of her favourite music. I bet not many people are doing this kind of thing, using this kind of music as well. So thank you for being here this evening, for joining us. And I look forward to seeing you again on Sunday evening. Sunday night, we're back with Sunday night as organ music night. And I dare say on Sunday night, we'll have some more royal music as well, this time for His Majesty, King Charles. It's been a long time since the Brits have had a king, so I think that also needs to be celebrated. So we'll do some of that on Sunday night as well. And Prince Charles is not only into classical music, he loves a good tune as well. So join us to find out what that's going to be. Same time, same place on Sunday night. And until then, I leave you with Somewhere Over the Rainbow, played on this magnificent sampled theatre organ. Thank you very much for being here this evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for putting up with my music and the technical issues we were having at the beginning in the background. I hope you didn't notice. And also thank you for your generous donations, which, like I say, keep us going. Thank you very much indeed. See you all very, very soon. Good night.